Let me describe a couple to you and see if this sounds familiar. Both of them are working professionals. She's in marketing, earning $62,000 a year, and he works in IT, bringing home $71,000. Together, their household income comes to $133,000. That comfortably places them within the top 25% of American households. On paper, they should be doing extremely well. They should be building wealth, maxing out retirement contributions, enjoying vacations, and feeling financially secure. But that's not their reality. Instead, they're constantly stressed. Most months, they're basically living paycheck to paycheck, or at least close to it. Their savings might cover 2 months of expenses if they're lucky. When their car suddenly needed repairs last month, the bill had to go straight onto a credit card. Both of them work full-time, and sometimes even longer than that. They're exhausted most of the time. During the week, they hardly see each other, maybe sharing a couple of tired hours together in the evening before going to bed. And here's the strange part. They followed the exact formula everyone told them to follow. They earned their degrees, built stable careers, got married, combined their finances, and bought a home in a decent school district. They did everything right. So why does it still feel like they're barely staying afloat? Why does a family earning well into 6 figures still feel financially fragile? If you've ever looked at your combined income and thought, we make too much money to feel this broke, then this conversation might help explain why. My name is Bobby, and I spend a ridiculous amount of time thinking about why modern two-income households often feel worse off than single-income families did 50 years ago. If you and your partner are both working hard and still wondering why it never feels like enough, consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up if it helps clarify things. Here's the reality. For decades, we've been told that two incomes are automatically better than one. It seems logical. If one person earning $50,000 could support a family, then two people earning $50,000 each should be able to support the same family while still having another $50,000 available for saving and investing. That's basic arithmetic, but in practice, that's not what happened. What unfolded instead was something closer to a financial bait-and-switch, and most people never noticed it happening. This dynamic is known as the two-income trap. The term was introduced by Elizabeth Warren back in 2003 when she was still a professor at Harvard, studying bankruptcy law. Long before her political career, she and her daughter, Amelia Warren Tyagi, analyzed more than 2,000 families who had filed for bankruptcy and documented their findings in a book. What they uncovered surprised even them. Two incomes didn't make families more secure. In many cases, it actually made them more vulnerable. Households with two working parents were statistically more likely to declare bankruptcy than families relying on a single income. Think about that for a moment. Two salaries, double the work, doing exactly what modern society encourages, and yet the financial risk actually increased? That's not simply a personal budgeting mistake. It's a structural issue that many people are caught in without realizing it. To understand how we got here, we need to rewind to the early 1970s. Around 1970, about 43% of women participated in the workforce. Most middle-class families relied primarily on one earner, usually the father, while the other parent stayed home managing the household. What's often forgotten is that this arrangement typically worked. One income was generally sufficient to support a family comfortably. Historical data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and Census records shows that a median family could buy a median-priced home while spending roughly 25% of their income on housing. Public schools were reasonably funded regardless of neighborhood, so families didn't need to chase specific districts. Healthcare, food, transportation, and other essentials were manageable expenses. Families could still save a little money and occasionally take a vacation. Most importantly, they had breathing room, they had financial margin, and they had a backup plan. If the primary earner lost their job or became sick, the stay-at-home parent could enter the workforce. That second potential income acted as a safety net, something that could be activated during emergencies. Now fast forward to the present day. Female participation in the workforce is roughly 57% overall, and even higher among married mothers. Dual-income households are now the norm rather than the exception. More than 60% of married couples with children have both parents working. In other words, the backup plan became the default way families operate. Meanwhile, incomes did increase somewhat. In 2023, the median household income was around $74,000 after adjusting for inflation, noticeably higher than the typical household income in 1970. On the surface, it looks like families should be better off financially, but the cost side of the equation changed dramatically. The median home price in 1970, when adjusted for inflation, would be roughly $200,000 today. In 2023, the median home price reached around $400,000. Housing costs effectively doubled relative to inflation. Healthcare spending per household increased by more than 600% since 1970. Childcare, which was rarely a major expense when one parent stayed home, now costs the average family more than $11,000 annually per child. In higher-cost cities, that number can easily climb to $20,000 or even $30,000 per year. College education costs have also surged dramatically, rising more than 1,200% since 1980. In other words, the basic costs of maintaining a middle-class life expanded dramatically, while wages grew only modestly. The additional income from a second worker didn't translate into extra wealth. Instead, those additional earnings were absorbed by rising expenses. The modern two-income household doesn't enjoy twice the financial stability of a 1970s single-income family. In many cases, they actually have less security because both incomes are already committed to covering higher fixed costs, and the emergency backup income is gone. Now, you might think your household avoided this problem because you manage money carefully and avoided lifestyle inflation. Maybe that's true. But let's look at what typically happens to a second income. Imagine one partner earns $70,000 and the other earns $50,000, creating a combined income of $120,000. That sounds impressive, but let's isolate what actually happens to that second $50,000. First come taxes, because the United States uses a progressive tax system. Additional income is taxed at higher marginal rates. The first $70,000 falls into lower brackets, but the extra $50,000 sits on top of it. After federal taxes, state taxes, and payroll taxes, that second salary may shrink to roughly $32,000 to $35,000 in take-home pay. Next comes childcare if the couple has children. The average daycare cost in the United States is around $15,000 per year for one child. With two children, that becomes $30,000 annually. At this point, most of the second income has already disappeared. Then there are commuting costs. Two working adults usually require two commutes between gasoline, maintenance, insurance, and depreciation. Commuting often costs about $5,000 per year per person. If a second vehicle or parking fees are involved, the cost can approach $8,000 annually. Suddenly, the financial contribution of the second income is shrinking rapidly. But it doesn't end there. When both parents work full-time, household tasks like cooking, cleaning, and maintenance often get outsourced. Studies show that dual-income families spend more on convenience services. They rely more on food delivery, pre-prepared meals, house cleaning services, lawn care, and frequent restaurant visits simply because time and energy are limited after long workdays and commutes. These exhaustion-driven expenses can easily add another $5,000 to $10,000 per year. After accounting for taxes, childcare, commuting, and convenience spending, that original $50,000 second salary might translate into only about $2,000 in net financial benefit, sometimes even less. That means someone is working full-time, commuting every day, missing time with family, and the household may be gaining only a couple $1,000s annually. That works out to roughly $8 per working day, about $1 per hour. Despite that reality, the psychological trap remains powerful. Because the gross household income appears large, families make financial decisions based on the full combined amount. They purchase homes priced for two incomes. They finance cars, assuming two salaries will always exist. Lenders approve mortgages based on the combined earnings, sometimes $400,000 or more. Technically, the math works, but only if both incomes continue uninterrupted indefinitely. As long as no one gets sick, loses a job, burns out, needs to care for a parent, or faces any of life's unpredictable events. That's when the trap finally reveals itself. The single-income household decades ago had flexibility. If the primary earner lost their job, the other parent could step into the workforce. Today's dual-income household already used that option just to sustain its lifestyle. Both incomes are required to keep the system running. There's no backup left to activate. This is why Warren's research found higher bankruptcy rates among dual-income households, not because families were careless, but because they were operating without margin for error. Everything functions smoothly until something goes wrong, and then the entire structure becomes unstable at once. A Federal Reserve study conducted in 2019 found that nearly 40% of American adults could not cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something. Many of those individuals belong to households earning respectable incomes on paper. The issue is not always insufficient income. The issue is that expenses have expanded to absorb every dollar coming in. And the expenses absorbing that second income are not luxury indulgences. They are housing, childcare, healthcare, and education. The fundamental costs of participating in the middle class. Housing provides the clearest example. When most families relied on one income, they competed for homes based on one salary. Once two-income households became common, buyers suddenly had twice the purchasing power. Naturally, housing prices rose dramatically. Two incomes became the new baseline requirement for the same homes that previously required only one. A similar pattern occurred with education. Because public schools are funded largely through property taxes, better schools tend to exist in more expensive neighborhoods. Parents understandably want access to those schools, which drives housing prices higher in those districts. Instead of paying tuition directly, families effectively pay for education through higher mortgage payments. Once they commit to those larger mortgages, the need for two incomes becomes permanent. At this point, you might be wondering what the solution is. Most families cannot simply drop to one income immediately, but the key shift is how you think about the second income. Instead of treating both incomes as guaranteed forever, treat the second income as optional, even if you still rely on it. Many families structure their lifestyle assuming both incomes will always exist. They buy homes, cars, and commitments based on that assumption. A different strategy is building what could be called a one-income foundation. In this model, essential expenses like housing, transportation, and bills are structured so they could be covered by one income alone. The second income then becomes an accelerator. It can be directed towards savings, investments, or debt reduction rather than basic survival. For example, imagine a household earning $130,000 combined, with $75,000 from one partner and $55,000 from the other. Instead of buying a home that requires nearly $100,000 of income to maintain, they choose a home affordable on around $60,000. Instead of maintaining two car loans, they keep only one vehicle or eliminate the loan entirely. The neighborhood might be slightly less prestigious, but the mortgage remains manageable. The second income can then flow into savings and investments, first building an emergency fund, then contributing to retirement accounts, and eventually investing in assets that grow over time. Every dollar invested creates more flexibility in the future. It allows one partner to step away from work if necessary, pursue opportunities, care for family members, or handle unexpected events without financial collapse. Admittedly, this approach requires discipline early on. It means walking past homes you technically qualify for. It means explaining to friends why your lifestyle didn't immediately expand after a raise. It means resisting social pressure to spend like a dual-income household while building wealth like a single-income household. But after several years, something remarkable happens. The investments funded by that second income begin generating their own returns. Compounding takes over. Eventually, you reach the level of financial security people assumed two incomes would automatically provide. Instead of constantly treading water, you start building lasting stability. Decisions become guided by what benefits your family rather than what keeps the mortgage paid. Ultimately, the two-income trap isn't really about income. It's about flexibility and financial margin. Earlier generations often had the ability to absorb shocks or shift responsibilities without destroying their finances. In many ways, we traded that resilience for larger homes, nicer cars, and the appearance of prosperity, but appearances are not wealth. Cash flow alone does not equal security, and two incomes are not automatically better than one if both paychecks are already spent before they arrive. The households that succeed financially today are not always the ones earning the most. They are the ones who protect flexibility, prevent expenses from expanding to consume their earnings, and keep their backup plan intact instead of using it just to keep up with everyone else. You can earn your way out of many problems, but you cannot escape a trap you don't even realize you're in. Now that you see it, the real question is what you will do differently. If this discussion changed how you view your finances, hit the like button and subscribe for more conversations that challenge the way we think about money. I'll see you in the next one.